Good morning, Vietnam! So I came across this Truth Dig article by Chris Hedges called The Rhetoric of Violence. It sort of has to do with the backdrop of the Cliven Bundy sort of spectacle. Here's my take on it sort of real quick. He did stand up to the federal government, and they had a bunch of militia, a bunch of people with arms and guns, and they didn't want to have a national crisis, so they backed down. So in a way, the Tea Party, the right, actually had a Shamar Thomas type moment. You know, Chris Hedges was talking about when the police and those that are in power actually start identifying with the masses and with everybody else, and refrains from beating the shit out of everybody because they see their mother or their brother or sister out in the audience. Instead of just manhandling the masses, they actually start identifying with them, and they don't hurt them, and that's when the revolution wins. That's when the thing actually recedes back, and we can take back our government and our streets, and take back our world. So yeah, he was actually able to do that, and he'll always have that no matter what stupid racist shit that comes out of his mouth. He was able to actually get the government to back down because they all put a bunch of guns up. And so the Tea Party's ready. They're itching for a fight. It wasn't a perfect fight. He isn't. I don't think it's going to be like Taugayita or like the Johnny Logan of the American Revolution. It's not going to start the spark. It's not the shot heard across the world. Though there is a lot of the anti-tax rhetoric, anti-federal government, freedom, you know, the powers that be. So there is a lot of that type of American revolutionary talk, if you look at it from the colonist perspective. But if you look at the Native American perspective, we're not even close to being where we need to be. You know, we need to start Shawneeing it up. We need to be, you know, get our inner Cherokee and start Yuchi-ing the Boozies, and really, you know, just Chickasaw, just saw up the I don't know, just Chickasaw the rich, right? Just Chickasaw the rich into pieces. So Chris Hedges, The Rhetoric of Violence. This is his take on the entire of everything. Okay, how does violence and Occupy and revolution, how does all this tie in together? So at least 9 people were killed, at least 35 others were wounded in shootings across Chicago on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Thursday, police announced that a man had been arrested on charges of firing on a number of motorists, recently wounded 3 of them on Kansas City area highways. On April 13th, 3 people, including a child, were murdered at 2 Jewish-affiliated facilities in Overland Park, Kansas, leading to the arrest of a white supremacist. On April 12th, armed militias in Nevada got the federal government to retreat, allowing rancher Cliven Bundy to continue to graze his cattle on public land. All this happened over a span of only 9 days in the life of a country where more than 250 people are shot every day. In America, violence and the threat of lethal force are the ways we communicate. Violence, the preferred form of control by the state, is an expression of our hatred, self-loathing, and lust for vengeance. And this bloodletting will increasingly mark a nation in terminal decline. Violence, as H. Rap Brown said, is as American as cherry pie. Violence, right? Americans love their violence. It has a long and coveted place in U.S. history. Vigilante groups including slave patrols, gunslingers, Pinkerton and Baldwin Felts detectives, gangs of strike breakers, gun thugs company, militias, the White Citizens Council, the Knights of the White Camellia, Ku Klux Klan, which boasted more than 3 million members between 1915 and 1944, and took over the governance of some states, formed and shaped America. Heavily armed mercenary paramilitaries, armed militias such as the Oath Keepers and the anti-immigration extremist group Ranch Rescue, along with the omnipotent militarized police forces, are parts of a seamless continuation of Americans' gun culture and tradition of vigilantism. In roaming the landscape along with these vigilante groups are lone gunmen who kill for money or power or at the command of their personal demons. Vigilante groups in America do not trade violence for violence. They murder anyone who defies the structures of capitalism, even if the victims are unarmed. The vigilantes, often working with the approval and sometimes with the collusion of state law enforcement agencies, are rarely held accountable. They're capitalism's shock troops, its ideological vanguard, used to break populist movements. Imagine that. If instead of right-wing militias, so-called eco-terrorists who have never been found responsible for taking a single American life had showed up armed in Nevada, how would the authorities have responded if those carrying guns had been from Earth first? Take a guess. So across United States history, hundreds of unarmed labor union members have been shot to death by vigilante groups working on behalf of coal, steel, or mining concerns, and thousands more have been wounded. So when we the people stand up, when the working class stand up, when environmentalists stand up, when we say enough is enough, they'll gun us down. But when the just some vigilante goes off, and maybe they're right and maybe they're wrong, but when they're defending corporate power, of course the powers that be is going to like that. Who gives a shit, right? Just let everybody kill each other while they're up in the ivory tower just laughing it up, you know, eating and carving up the world with their, you know, their bottle of Chianti and their caviar and their Lexus and their Prius, right? The Prius and a Lexus and a Prius and 30 other cars and boats and whatever it is that rich people fucking buy. Okay, so if you look across United States history, hundreds of unarmed labor union members have been shot to death by vigilante groups working on behalf of coal, steel, or mining concerns. In fact, America is one of the worst when it comes to working class. It's one of the bloodiest labor wars in all the industrialized world. So compared to Canada or England or I don't know, Germany and Spain and all these other countries, we have the bloodiest labor wars. Whenever we get together to strike, that's when the cops get called out and start beating the shit out of us working class people. Well, we want to be treated like humans. No, we don't want to break the company, but we want, you know, let's stop having unsafe working conditions. Let's stop having kids in the factories. Let's have a weekend. Let's pay people a decent rate. Let's have health care in the workplace. Let's have contracts every year so that we were guaranteed a job for at least a year instead of just being at will employment. So when they go to you know, ship our jobs overseas, when they go to outsource our jobs and shit, we got contracts, so you got to stick it out. At least pay us or pay us out of this contract. You got to stick it out. You know, that's the best way to do it. Get a 5-year contract. That's nice. That's some job security, you know. We got contracts. You got to go through a whole mechanism in order to fire us. You have to go through some sort of due process. You can't just fuck with people when you got a union. Unions are some of your best jobs out here. If you got a good union job, that means you're a police officer, you're a firefighter, a pilot, a teacher, even garbage workers. A lot of times garbage workers are unionized, and they do you know, they make good money. So the United States is the bloodiest labor wars in the industrialized world, right? If you took Julie Chancellor's class out of Valley High School, you would never know this shit because she talks about how great the bankers were. So she glosses over the Homestead Act and the Pullman strike and all the labor struggles that it took for all these, you know, to get an 8-hour workday, to get child labor banned. There's a lot of struggle, a lot of people, a lot of, you know, hitting the grindstone and sort of sticking the, you know, shaking your fist at power and sticking truth in the face of power to actually, you know, actually stand up to power and winning. That's incredible. That's incredible, and that's something that never happens at all. There's no solidarity anywhere when it comes to classroom, workplace, not even in colleges. There's no liberalism in college. It's a bunch of fascists and a bunch of, you know, there's an autocratic dictator, and then there's a bunch of sheep who just kick the autocratic dictator's ass. Even if the people are like, well, I still have my own mind and shit. Well, whenever motherfucker says some shit in class, you don't fucking say shit. You sit down, you comply with that entire social, you're the boss, I sit down, you know, you do all that type of shit. So yeah, America is one of the bloodiest fucking places to have a labor movement, right? Murderous rampages by vigilante groups, almost always in the pay of companies or oligarchs, right? So you got private security firms. That's the Pinkertons. That's the Homestead strike. They'll just pay some private security guards, and then they'll fucking, well, hey, I got a gun. They fucking hired me to be here and shit. So ha ha ha. They've been unleashed on union members, agitators of companies, oligarchs. They've been unleashed on. Let's see. Although no labor union ever publicly called for an armed uprising, so they've killed and maimed and wounded labor strikers, people, union members, right? And that's one of the things in the poem, right? First they come for the communists, they came for the labor unions that didn't speak up, then they come for the Jews. The labor unions is one of the first ones that they had talked about. Martin Luther King Jr. died for the ability for garbage workers in Memphis to be able to unionize. So to be able to unionize, to be able to stick together and be in solidarity with one another. So African Americans too have endured a vigilante reign of terror, one that's lasted for generations after the Civil War. So the reign of terror, that's a good example. So you have the Ku Klux Klan. They're killing whoever they don't like. If they whistled at a white woman or whatever, a black dude whistled at a white woman, they're going to kill him. That's what happened with Thomas Walker in Fulton County, Kentucky. They killed the entire family. There was an argument with a black man and a white woman, and then the entire family was they murdered them at night. The night riders come in at night, about 50 of them or so. Like real brave, fucking piece of shit cowards they actually fucking are. Killed the kids too, killed the babies. But that was just over a fucking white one. But my point is, the powers that be don't necessarily have to be part of the Ku Klux Klan. They don't have to necessarily be white supremacists. But if the white supremacists go after undesirables or their political enemies, then they can wipe their hands off and say, oh, as well, who gives a shit? A lot of times the lynching would say, they would try to justify it for some reason, right? Well, he killed this person, well, he raped this person, he did this thing, he did this crime, so therefore he had to die. Well, okay, well, that's all I need to know. You said he done something, that's all I need to know. No trial or anything, who gives a shit? So the same thing with labor wars. If there's a union, and then the union went to Kentucky Steel. There's a steel plant in Kentucky or anywhere, just LG&E. If the people of LG&E, workers of any place, if they was just to say, hey, let's get together, and they had let's just start carrying our guns to work with us. They would, people be like, hey, what the fuck is up with that? There might even be like an anti-gun rule, but the companies will have their own private security guards that have their fucking guns, and they walk around the property all day long, just looking for someone to pop. Are they going to shoot one of the employees or someone breaking in? You would think it's someone to break in, but, Kent State, that shit happens. Right, May 4th, that shit happened like nearly 3 days from now. Kent State. May the 4th. That's the only thing I think about when it comes to May the 4th is the Kent State Massacre. That's when the federal government, the National Guard, people that was at the same age as the college students was gunning down college students for peacefully protesting. 4 people lost their lives for a peaceful protest because there was actually being orders I heard out of the White House I don't want to say open fire, like the CIA, I don't know. These motherfuckers, the FBI is going to be releasing JFK's files in 3 years, 2017, right? So, vigilante bands, okay. We've seen, African Americans have seen vigilante reign of terror, how that doesn't work out for them, definitely, but it's also, violence that supposedly helps those who are in power. It's not good for good whites either. If they're too fucking scared, you got to get over that because these Ku Klux Klan members are doing shit in your name. And so as long as you don't say shit about it, it looks as if though everybody is in favor of the KKK. Vigilantes are being lionized by popular culture. They win mythic status in Hollywood movies. They glorify the lone adventures. Vigilante bands have served and continue to serve the interest of state power, or as in the case involving the Nevada rancher, corporations that seek to eradicate public lands, right? So this Nevada rancher is a Falcon welfare rancher living on other people's land. Ultimately, what corporations want to do is they want to take the public lands back. The public lands are all of our lands. So in Kentucky, we got the Daniel Boone National Forest, right? Daniel Boone National Forest takes over like fucking millions of acres, lots of space, but that's all of our acres. It's all of our. I hear about corporations coming in, and then the oil rights or the coal, they'll just fucking sell for pennies on the dollar and just give it away. Just give away our resources to the corporations. Ultimately, the corporations want to take all the land and all the resources and fuck the people, right? And that's all a corporation wants is profit. Make more money, and just keep on making money and producing and making profits and making more money and never stopping, just always acquiring more. Right, that's that's the point of a corporation. So they want to take these fucking public lands. They want to take the public parks, our public parks, okay? These are our public parks. No, you can't just take Daniel Boone National Forest. You can't just take that. The idea is that they are, supposed to be some grazing land fees. I wasn't part of this decision, so I don't know where these decisions are being made up, and I don't like the fact that I have so little power. Just being a citizen, just watching all this. I'm a spectator, not really a participant in power. But that's what he's doing, okay? That's what Chris Hedges is sort of boils this all down to. Cliven Bundy is doing what he thinks is right, but it's in line with the corporation, so it doesn't fucking matter if really his personal situation is right, because the corporations want to eradicate all the public land. So if you could just say, hell, that is his land, and that's, you know, not the public's land that used to be his, then you could just hopefully just undo it all, right? Just go back to the original Native Americans. That's who had the original land. So let's just give, you know, find out who originally had this, you know, Kentucky. The original people here were the Shawnee, the Yuchi, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, you know, and some of the other ones. So let's give their land back to them if we agree with Cliven Bundy.